Hello and welcome to Money, 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 your personal finance date with me, Surabhi Upadhyay. Now, this is a very, very special show for me because it is giving me the opportunity to connect with you on all things finance, money and wealth after a long, long gap. So very happy to be here and happy to be connecting with all our viewers back on Money, Money, Money. Well, we kick things off on a big, big debate today. That debate relates to the role that finfluencers, financial content makers, financial influencers are making on social media. The impact that they're making on digital channels, their relevance and role in spreading financial education and awareness, and how perhaps they now need to be regulated. There's been a growing clamor. Of course, a couple of misdemeanors have been highlighted as well in the recent past, and SEBI has come out with a consultation paper. This consultation paper came out just a few weeks back, where SEBI proposed certain sweeping changes, including foremost completely disconnecting all SEBI-regulated entities, whether it's stockbrokers or mutual funds, with any finfluencer who chooses not to get registered with SEBI. So if you want to participate with financial product manufacturers, you need to get registered. That's the simple message in one line that SEBI put out in its consultation paper. Now, it's been open for public debate and comment for the last couple of weeks. And by this weekend, SEBI is supposed to receive all of those sort of suggestions or comments. And then we'll eventually move towards the final shape and form of this regulation. So what is the way forward? We've heard a lot of back and forth, and today on this panel, we have representation from all stakeholders. Let me start by introducing my guest. Very popular and well-known face on YouTube, Rachana Ranade, is joining us, and she, of course, represents the Finfluencer community, a huge sort of sweeping community which is now reaching out to digital audiences, cutting across age groups, especially, of course, the younger audiences. Representing the financial sector, we have with us Swarup Mohanty, CEO of Mirae Asset Investment Managers, and also Gagan Singla, MD of BlinkX, which is JM Financial's latest fintech platform that they're setting up. And then representing the advisory community, the small breed of registered investment advisors, is Mohit, who's of course been on the show. You've heard him several times in the past many years on a lot of very good sort of content when it comes to advisory on how to manage your money. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. This is an important debate and one that we need to have. Public discourse is very important on this aspect. So, I want to start by getting my panel's first thoughts on the regulatory paper, this consultation paper that SEBI came out with, where SEBI essentially said that get registered and then deal with SEBI-regulated entities, otherwise complete disconnect. Rachana, what did you make of this paper? I think it was just 2-3 pages in total length. What are your first thoughts?
I think this is definitely a welcome move for regulating this whole industry. The only thing we should understand why this came in. And for that, when I read the consultation paper very carefully, if you move to point number 2, which talks about the background, in that point number 2.4, there are two major points what SEBI is really concerned with. Number 1, it is about people who are unregistered entities, including influencers, who are trying to entice people. And number 2, their problem is if the disclosure is not given about the monetary relationship between the unregistered entity, including influencer, and the other entity who is paying. So I think the second point is pretty easy to steer. We just need to have disclosure requirements which SEBI gives out, and we as influencers or other people who want to continue this, they absolutely comply with the disclosure requirements. The first point is a little bit tricky, where it is mentioned that people are trying to entice the followers. Now I think a proper distinction needs to be made between what do we mean by enticing people to trade and what do we mean by educating their followers. So I'll just give a quick example for that. If I'm making a video about top 3 finance ratios, and if I talk about, let's say, debt to equity ratio, PE ratio, and ROC, after making the video, I say that, okay, these are 2-3 examples. And then I say that if you want to kickstart your investment journey, you need to have a demat account. And for that, link is there in the description box. Now, ultimately, if people are going ahead, they are opening their demat account, and if some brokerage is earned out of this, then I am getting this income as a byproduct. That is not the whole reason why I'm creating this video. So having this as an income should not be a problem according to me. See, the whole point that I'm making is enticing people is a problem. तो ये बीमारी है, इसको ठीक करना चाहिए. तो प्रॉब्लम ये हो रहा है, अभी लोग बोल रहे हैं कि बीमारी है क्या, इंसान को ही खत्म कर दो तो बीमारी ऑटोमेटिकली खत्म हो जाएगी. That should not be the thought process. We should address as to what is the problem, and that should be taken care of, is what my thought process is.
Rachana, fair enough, but let me present a counter argument that I think a lot of people in the financial community are also making. A lot of the registered advisors are also making that there has been, I don't know if I can call it misselling, but there has been maybe some amount of abuse where trading workshops are being held, get rich with these 5 stock tips, attend a master class and, get to be a master of futures and options trading instantly. So yes, there is a community that is educating, but there is also a community that is out to make money. And, somewhere there is this gray area. So, what would you say about the prevalent practices right now? Not you, you're speaking for yourself, but in general, the practices that you see around in the Finfluencer community.
I think problem that even Madhavi ji pointed out in one of her conversations is that those influencers or other unregistered entities who are saying, "Ek din mein crorepati ban jao, ek din mein lakhpati ban jao." This is like 100% accuracy F&O strategy. This is what that needs to be curbed. And unfortunately, there are people who are doing this. Now the problem is that because of these few people, the whole influencer community is being put under the villain category. Okay, so I personally believe that in every single profession, there are going to be good folks, there are going to be bad folks. We can't actually weigh them on a same weighing scale. You need to take into account what is the problem that these people are creating and address that rather than putting everyone into the villain category.
Okay, fair point. Let's take this on to the rest of our panel as well. Swarup, let's bring you in because what we've seen is that, let's face it, I mean, a lot of the product manufacturers, whether it's mutual funds or even brokers, and I'll take Gagan's view on this, you all love tying up with influencers, right? It's good for the business because you reach out to younger audiences and, these connections are happening. The problem is it's all happening underneath the surface, a bit murky. We don't know whether what the influencer is saying is just genuine education or whether there are certain interests at play. What do you think? Your first thoughts?
Surabhi, first of all, welcome back and thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
See, you talked about it being grey. For me, it's absolutely, there is nothing grey about this.
Okay.
Please understand, we work in a fiduciary environment, and in the fiduciary environment, there is a regulator. And there are 2 types of people in this environment. There is the lawmaker and there is the law follower. The lawmaker is SEBI. All of us are law followers. There is no ambiguity on this. And number 2, when you handle somebody else's money, you have to be very careful of what you say, how you act. And there is a lot of difference. I think Rachana said it herself. There is a lot of difference between educating and selling. And that's where the problem is. There is, this would have been any problem if there would have been education and full stop education. There is not a thin line, but a big line between the statement, let me tell you how to invest in mutual funds, or let me tell you how to become rich with mutual funds. In our environment, when you look at the people within our environment, it's not only do they disclose that they are paid, they are also disclosing how much they have to pay. The MFDs now disclose how much they are paid, right? So this is not about non-registered influencers, it's all about registered influencers also. I don't agree that this is about non-registered. The regulation should be correct about both sides. Yes, anybody talking about this space has to be registered, that is a given. Now, within that, the code of conduct for registered people has to also come in. I mean, today we go to a movie, it's very blatant. Somebody picks up a cigarette, comes this big statement that cigarette smoking is injurious to health. But that is not happening. And that is where the regulator steps in. And whenever the regulator steps in, it is a complete law. It does not differentiate between who's doing right and who is doing wrong. And that's how it should be. So time had come when this excess had to be corrected, and I'm very happy that there is some law to it. At least some sanity should prevail, because the kind of commitments that were going out on behalf of products, I don't know if they were backed by money or not, on the surety of money being made in a completely unsure environment was getting a bit too out of hand. So the regulation is welcome according to me.
Okay, got that. Let's bring in Gagan as well. Gagan, because on one hand, I mean, one aspect is, okay, suggestions or hints about buying a certain type of fund or a certain fund which can, make you rich. That's the disclosure that we're talking about. The other thing that we've all seen happening is, in the middle of a video, perhaps there can be some sort of a suggestion to use a particular platform. Now, I know that you guys are setting up a fintech platform at JM Financial as well. I think it's called BlinkX, right? So tell us, how can this be navigated? First of all, as an industry participant, would you want to ride on Finfluencers? How important is the digital medium for you? And if yes, and what's the way forward? What are the rail guards or guardrails rather that we need to put in place?
Yeah, see, first of all, I think we should look at this as a very, very positive move, not only from the side of players like us, but I think the influencers should be very happy, because if you are getting regulated, it basically means that you have become a very large force now, right? You are in the eyes of SEBI itself, means that you are very important now. So from that perspective, I think everybody should be happy, because all the influencers should be happy that now they are being actually seen by SEBI, right? In terms of using the digital platform, obviously using the apps, the trading platforms, the KYC and all we use, the kind of regulation that SEBI is bringing, it is not stopping anybody, right? It's not stopping the influencer for doing anything, right? It's a matter of making sure the disclosures are there. For example, any industry like finance or pharma is heavily regulated, right? Because there's a lot of sensitivity in it. In finance, the raw material is money, right? Therefore, there's a lot of sensitivity. And same is pharma, right? Doctors have to be very registered practitioners, right? So therefore, I think what SEBI is bringing is making sure that, as Swarup said, lot of disclosures, lot of clarity to the users, right? If you look at the spirit of the law is that we want to protect the value of the consumers, right? Protect the consumers. They should have all the disclosures. They should have all the clarity of what the user is saying, what the influencer is saying. And when it comes to decision making, you can always use digital and social media to get information. You can use it for getting to know a lot of knowledge, right? But actually, finally, when you take decisions, you should always get a consultation from somebody who's registered, who is an official practitioner, who is a certified practitioner. That's what happens across the board in any sensitive industry.
But
so I think it is okay to use social media for information, but decision making always has to be with somebody who's certified, be it a researcher, be it a RIA, whatever, right?
But I guess, Gagan,
we use digital for reaching out to people.
But Gagan, in a world that has converged so fast in the last 10 years, I think that's easier said than done. On paper, you can say that only use social media for communication and information, and use Mohit services to take that decision. But I think that's easier said than done. We can say it on TV, but in practice, I think that's the challenge. But we are going to talk.
All of us,
Sorry. Yeah.
All of us hear from our friends ki take paracetamol, crocin, or antibiotic. But finally, we decide the medicine, you speak to a doctor, right? so that is also in the hand of the user, right? You may hear from a lot of people, but eventually you want to call a doctor and check ki main kya loon.
Fair point. No, fair point. And that's where I think as customers, consumers, investors, we need to get more aware and more savvy as well, and not sort of believe everything that's spoken blindly. And that onus is on the investor. Completely agree with that. But I think the first part of this discussion has established that our panel is in agreement. More disclosures are needed wherever there's money being exchanged in return for perhaps promoting a service or a product. It needs to be disclosed. So Rachana, you're on board with that as well, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, superb. So we're on agreement in the first half of the discussion. The second half of the discussion focuses on the more tricky area, this business of registration. If influencers want to get registered, then what's the way out? What are their options, and are those options even viable? We take a break and come right back.